So NSF just released a brand new solicitation. It's NSF 26-510, and it was released on May 22nd. It offers 210 million in funding and about 340 anticipated awards. So it's one of the biggest opportunities for deep tech companies right now. But here's what most founders don't know. You cannot submit a full proposal directly to NSF. Unlike other federal agencies like the Department of Defense or the Department of Energy or the Department of Education, there's a preliminary step, like a gateway step you have to pass through first, and you have to be invited to submit a full proposal. So this preliminary step is called a project pitch. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what NSF project pitches require under the new solicitation, what's changed, what reviewers are actually looking for, and some advice from Program Director Rajesh Mehta, and some mistakes that get pitches declined. So there is currently an open window for full pitches until July 27th. So if you've already submitted your project pitch and you've been approved, you should be compiling your full proposal right now. So what is the NSF project pitch and why does it exist? The NSF project pitch is required for any SBIR or STTR Phase 1 application under the new solicitation NSF 26-510. So no one's allowed to submit a full proposal without going through this process first. And it's essentially a mini proposal. It usually consists of a total of 3 pages. So it's a short written submission that covers 4 sections that NSF uses to evaluate whether your technology fits their program before you invest weeks or even sometimes months writing a full proposal. So this helps to save founders the time and effort required for a full proposal if your innovation doesn't fit NSF requirements. So after you submit your project pitch, NSF usually responds within a month or 2, but often much sooner than that. And you'll receive one of 2 responses. You'll either receive an invitation to submit the full Phase 1 proposal, which is valid for the next 2 submission deadlines after the date of the invitation. After that, your invitation will expire and you'll have to reapply and go through the project pitch process again. So the second response could be a decline with a brief explanation on why your project is not an appropriate fit for the program. So here's something important to remember. A declined pitch is not a judgment about whether your technology is good, whether your idea is valuable, or whether you actually could have a commercially viable product. It's specifically about the program decision and fit. You have to have a very specific technology and innovation for NSF. So there's 2 critical rules under the new solicitation that founders need to know about. The first rule is you can only submit 1 project pitch at a time. So if you already have a pending pitch or an open invitation based on a pitch that you already submitted, or if you have a full proposal under review, you have to wait for resolution of those items before submitting a new project pitch. And the second rule is NSF limits each company now to a maximum of 2 project pitch submissions per year. So for the same project or technology, regardless of the topic or the timeline, there's a total limit of 3 submissions ever. So you cannot keep resubmitting a project pitch that's been declined indefinitely. So it's important to get it right when you first submit. So what's changed with the new solicitation, the 26-510? So the new solicitation was posted, like I mentioned, on May 22nd, and it actually replaces the 3 previous solicitations. But here are some key details that, as a founder, you want to know. So the award amounts for Phase 1 is up to $305,000 for 6 to 18 months of research and development work. So for the creation of a minimum viable product. Phase 2 is up to 1.25 million. And this is often 24 months of work after Phase 1. So you're developing your product from the minimum viable product more towards a commercialized product. There's also NSF introduced last year the Fast Track program, which is a combined Phase 1 and Phase 2, and this could be up to 1.55 million. There's also a Phase 2B supplement. So toward the ends of Phase 2, you could apply for an additional 50,000 to 500,000 for active Phase 2 awardees. And a new program is the Strategic Breakthrough, which is up to 30 million, and you can only apply for if you have an invitation from your program officer. And this is for exceptional phase 2 awardees. So the next few full proposal deadlines are July 27th, 2026, November 4th, 2026, March 4th, 2027, and July 7th, 2027. And then after that, it'll be annually on the first Wednesday of November in July and the first Thursday of March. So the total anticipated funding is $210 million with approximately 340 awards per year. So NSF does not take any equity from your company. You keep the full ownership of your company and your intellectual property. So in the new solicitation, NSF has added an explicit emphasis on what they call deep technologies. The program title now reads Developing Deep Technologies that Advance U.S. Competitiveness and Security. So this framing is intentional because NSF wants technologies that operate at the frontier of science and engineering, does the National Science Foundation. So they want that innovation to have potential for broad national impact. So they do not like incremental, they call it incremental innovations. So NSF is also separately piloting a new emphasis area on next generation instrumentation, novel experimental platforms, and scientific equipment to help advance all these projects at the frontiers of scientific discovery. So if your technology fits that description, and it's worth paying attention to. And NSF now also includes Innovation Corps, the I-Corps, as optional but highly encouraged within the phase 1 budget. So NSF loves companies that are involved with I-Corps either before or during the program. So this is a structured customer discovery program designed to help you to develop your technology and understand what customers want and the commercial impact. So this signals to NSF that you're serious about commercial validation. So if you want to know if your project actually fits, before you write a single word, you need to answer one honest question to yourself. Does my project actually fit what NSF is looking for? So NSF evaluates proposals on 3 criteria: the intellectual merit, the broader impacts, and the commercial potential. All 3 must be present. And if you obtain a strong score on 2 out of 3, that's not enough. I've been a federal reviewer for NSF since 2010, so I'm very familiar with exactly what they're looking for. So this is what NSF means when I say intellectual merit, broader impacts, and commercialization. So intellectual merit means that your technology represents genuine scientific or engineering innovation. This is new knowledge, new approaches, and new capabilities that did not exist before. Broader impacts means your technology benefits society beyond your direct customers. So it's not just something that could help a very small segment and maybe it wouldn't directly impact society. They want something that will help improve society with this technology. So this is because funding comes from taxpayers, so NSF must justify that investment. So this is part of their mission. Commercial potential means that your technology has a credible path to becoming a viable business. Real customers, real market, and real revenue. So they don't want just research and development and scientific innovation. They want to make sure that it's going to translate into a commercial product. So here's the direct advice from Rajesh Mehta. He's an NSF program director, and I want to share it. He posts this advice on the NSF Project Pitch videos that they have on their website. And this helps to cut through a lot of confusion associated with project pitches. So the number one reason why pitches get declined is that the technology is not innovative enough for NSF. So that doesn't mean that it's a bad technology or it's not commercially viable, but it has to be innovative enough for NSF. So they want technologies that are new to the world. So not just very small improvements what currently exist and not incremental advances. Sometimes they call this engineering advances. But there are other agencies that are okay with that. Often the Department of Defense or the Department of War, the Department of Energy, sometimes they're more accepting of, they call it engineering advances. So how do you know if your technology qualifies? So what I usually recommend to my clients is to check the patent landscape. If your innovation already exists in the patents, your claim to novelty is compromised. And also, this is important for NSF, check the scientific literature because many of the reviewers, actually the majority, are professors from universities. So they're familiar with the scientific literature and often the patent landscapes. So if your approach is already documented and proven in peer-reviewed research, it may no longer represent the type of high-risk technical challenge that NSF wants to fund. And Rajesh Mehta's advice is very important. Be authentic when writing your pitch. Of course, the use of large language models, most people are doing it these days, but they do not want something that sounds like it came from a language model. They want these pitches and proposals written in your own voice. They read hundreds of pitches and they can identify immediately when content was generated by a large language model rather than written by somebody who actually understands the technology. So AI generated pitches get declined. So write it yourself. So here are the 4 sections of the project pitch and the exact requirements. This NSF project pitch 4 sections have specific character limits. So I'll walk you through each one with the exact requirements from the current solicitation. So the first section is the technology innovation, and this has up to 3,500 characters. This is your most important section. NSF guidance says to explain the core high-tech innovation to be researched and developed during the phase 1 project. So NSF must understand what research and development is required, how the technical innovation differs from other, what's out there currently, and why it's better. So it does not say in the solicitation to describe your product. So describing features or benefits of your technology alone is insufficient. But of course, you have to include your description of your technology in that section. So Rajesh Mehta says that it has to be based on fundamental or applied science, and it has to cut through a major technical barrier that's very challenging to overcome. So what the reviewers want to understand is, what scientific or engineering problem are you solving at a fundamental level? What is new to the world about your approach, and how does it differ what currently exists in the patent and the scientific literature? What is the core high-tech challenge that the phase 1 research will attempt to address or resolve? So my practical guidance is to start with the origins of the innovation. Where did this come from? Did it come from university research, your own lab work, a gap you identified in the literature? Then describe what your technology does at a fundamental scientific level, not what it does for customers, but what the scientific principle it exploits or the engineering challenge that it overcomes. Then explain specifically how it differs from existing approaches and why those approaches will fall short. Next, identify the key unknown, the technical question that the phase 1 research will attempt to answer. So write out the entire pitch clearly. The program directors are scientifically very literate. Most of them hold PhDs, but they might not be specialists in your exact subfield. So you want to write it clearly, but academically and descriptively in a way that they could see that you understand the challenges and how you can overcome those. So you want to demonstrate your deep domain expertise in the pitch. And you want to also simplify that for a non-specialist. So the second section is technical objectives and challenges. This section is also up to 3,500 characters. And this is where you tell NSF step by step how you're going to cut through those technical barriers. This is NSF's official guidance. Clearly explain the specific research and development required to prove that your foundational technology works, and address the challenges explicitly with a description of each and how each one will be managed. So the program director, again, Rajesh Mehta, his framing is very clear for this section. Identify what the technical challenges are, then tell NSF step by step how you're going to meet those challenges. At each step, identify where the risks lie, because your research and development plan is fundamentally about de-risking those steps. So you want a de-risking plan, not just a work plan, although you do have to show what type of work that you will do during phase 1 with the funds that are provided by the grant award. So in this section, you'll explain the technical challenges, the significant unknowns, the things you do not know yet how to do, the gaps between where your technology is today and where it needs to be to demonstrate feasibility. The technical objectives also, they want to be specific, measurable milestones tied to quantitative success metrics. Don't use general language like we need to develop a prototype. These details are sometimes difficult to get into the project pitch because it is so short, but you want to put something in there like demonstrate 85% efficiency at target operating conditions by month 4. So as many specific details that you can include that are specific, measurable, time-bound, this will help add credibility to your project pitch and then also your full proposal. So phase 1, your goal is to establish scientific and technical feasibility. So scope your work to accomplish that and nothing more. So do the minimum work necessary to establish feasibility. Although this is funding for research and development, this is not like a master's thesis or a PhD dissertation. So you're doing the minimum amount of work you need to just demonstrate your feasibility or your minimum viable prototype. So your budget is limited and reviewers flag overscope proposals immediately. And they think it's not realistic. So they don't want to fund a plan that doesn't look realistic. So NSF will distinguish between acceptable and unacceptable activities here. So acceptable experiments, computations, modeling, prototype development aimed at resolving technical unknowns, data collection that generates new knowledge. What's unacceptable is market research, business development, purely engineering or manufacturing activities without a research component. That's not the type of plan that NSF likes to fund. So ask yourself, does this activity generate new knowledge that resolves a technical unknown? If it does, then it belongs. If it doesn't, then it does not. So the next section is the market opportunity. This has up to 1750 characters. This has half the character limit as the other 2 sections, but it's still important. So you have to be very precise and specific in the little amount of space that you have. So the guidance provided by NSF is explain the value of the technical innovation, including the potential uses and those who will benefit, and demonstrate a high level. You want to demonstrate a good level of the competitive landscape. Also, why the innovation has the potential to compete. So in the new solicitation, it tells you successful proposals convey the potential of NSF support to advance the viability of the startup or the small business by addressing key risk areas such as strengthening the team, improving the business model, engaging customers, positioning for follow-on funding, and solidifying your IP. So in this small section, do your best to cover a specific target market, not the total global market for a broad category, the specific segment you're addressing, who the customer is, not large enterprises, but there could be quality engineers at certain suppliers, principal investigators at NIH research labs. It could be general customers, but you have to have a very specific segment. So explain also why this group will adopt your technology. What problem does it solve that they cannot solve today? And a very brief competitive landscape will help. What alternatives exist, why your approach is different. So include evidence of commercial potential, customer conversations, letters of intent, pilot discussions, even brief mentions that signal that you've done the work. So do not claim to have no competition. As a reviewer myself, when I see that, that's really a big red flag because there's always some type of competition, even if it's not direct competition, but there's a way of performing that process or solving that need now, even if it's manual. So that's what you need to acknowledge in this section. The next section is the company and team. This also has up to 1750 characters like the previous section. And your team is very important to NSF. This section describes the people that are going to be involved with the research, their qualifications, and their credibility. So under the new solicitation, the PI requirements are, for SBIR, there's 1 PI and no co-PIs allowed. And the PI must be employed at least 51% by the small business and commit at least a minimum of 1 calendar month per 6 months of performance. For an STTR, there's 1 PI from the small business that's at least 51% employed and 1 co-PI from the partner research institution. So a PhD is not required. The PI does not need an advanced degree, but depending on your work plan, there might need to be someone with those credentials on your team. It depends what it is. So in this section, include your company background, when it was founded, what stage it's at, any achievements, your PI, what their qualifications are to this specific project, why are they the right person to perform this work, and also include the key team members. Highlight the expertise that supports the technical work that you summarized in section 2. And if your team has gaps, note briefly how you'll address that. So acknowledge missing expertise and explain your plan to fill those gaps. The new solicitation states that successful proposals may address strengthening the team as a key risk area that NSF funding can help with. So having those gaps don't disqualify you from having a credible plan. So what makes a good project pitch? So the program manager at NSF, Rajesh Mehta, summarized what it takes to make a good pitch. And I want to repeat it directly because I thought it was summarized very well. Your pitch needs to show how well it fits the NSF program. So it needs to be based on fundamental or applied research or science. It needs to cut through a major technical barrier to tell NSF step by step how you're going to cut through those barriers. You also need to explain how it will benefit society. This funding comes from taxpayers. And it needs to show the ability to emerge as a viable business. So it can't just be research and development or a promising technology. You have to show that you have the ability to translate this into a commercial product. So put all these points together in your own authentic voice, and then you'll have a great pitch. So let me add one thing from my own experience reviewing proposals. Pitches that succeed are the ones where the founder clearly understands the difference between their technology and their business. The technology is what you're doing your R&D on, and the business is why it matters to the world. So both must be present for the NSF, SBIR, and STTR programs. The majority of technical founders are actually excellent at the technical part because they're technical people and underprepared for the second. So the pitches that fail almost always fail for one of these reasons. The first reason is the innovation is not new to the world. So check your patents in scientific literature. Or the technical challenge is not genuinely challenging. NSF wants high risk, not low risk. The third one is the market section's too vague. Be specific about who will pay for this product and why. And then they also want to see an authentic voice in the pitch. So write it yourself. So your submission and what happens next. So here's how to actually submit your NSF project pitch. So if the first step is to complete the project pitch fit assessment, you can complete this at seedfund.nsf.gov/apply/the basics. This confirms your project aligns with the NSF program before you invest time writing. And then step 2, create an account at nsfgov.mysite.com, the My Work community portal. Step 3 is to navigate to the SBIR and STTR project pitches and select Submit New Project Pitch. And the fourth step is to complete your first 4 sections within the character limits. So again, the technology innovation section is up to 3,500 characters. The technical objectives and challenges is up to 3,500 characters. The market opportunity is up to 1,750 characters. And the company and team is up to 1,750 characters. So the final step, step 5, is to submit. NSF will respond within 1 to 2 months. If you receive the invitation, it's valid for the next 2 submission deadlines. The current full proposal deadlines under the new solicitation 26-510 are July 27th, 2026, November 4th, 2026, March 4th, 2027, and July 7th, 2027, and then annually after that. So read the feedback carefully with your project pitch before resubmitting. And remember, for the same technology, you have a total of 3 total submissions ever. So use them wisely. Full proposals must be submitted through research.gov and not grants.gov like the other federal agencies. So this is a common mistake worth noting. So the NSF 26-510 solicitation is live now. It has 210 million in anticipated funding with 340 awards. The next deadline is July 27th, 2026. So if you're targeting that window, your project pitch needs to be submitted and approved like immediately, which means you're submitting it as soon as you can. So two resources that will help you to move fast. If you already have purchased one of my resources, I really appreciate you. I have a book called The Startup's Guide to Winning Non-Dilutive Funding, which covers the full NSF SBIR process. So the full proposal and how NSF fits into a broader non-dilutive funding strategy. There's a link in the description. And I also offer a 30-day grant writing challenge at my website, SEMSCIO.com. This walks you through building a competitive proposal section by section. It includes daily emails, video walkthroughs, templates, and book chapters. If you want direct support on your specific pitch, feel free to visit semscio.com to schedule a call. And because the next deadline is July 27th, it's right around the corner. So your timeline is short. So subscribe to my channel. I'm covering what happens after your NSF invitation and how to write your full proposal under the new NSF 26-510 guidance. So my name again is Dr. Colleen Spiegel, and I'll see you in the next video.